and a lifestyle for our generation. We're constantly chasing experiences, hardly stopping to reflect on what is happening on the inside. If you feel like you're watching your life unfold from the sidelines, stop, learn how to rewrite your story to become the main character again. Now, I'd like to call Yashodhara Kundra.
Hi. Never have I ever had a postman deliver my college diploma to me on a random Wednesday afternoon, run into Leonard from the Big Bang Theory at the airport and realize only minutes after it happened. Almost get kidnapped with someone I just met because I was offered food. Run into Chris Hemsworth in my pajamas, or run into said kidnapper 3 years after the incident when the both of us reached out for the same piece of naan dramatically at a buffet. Well, I have. And more than the things that I have done, I am here to talk to you about the fear of missing out and the fear of missing out on people, experiences, relationships, and most importantly, on your own potential. But now coming to who I am. So, I ask this question to my students a lot. Who am I? But for me, I like to believe that I have what you call main character energy. I have a subtle balance of hustle, fun, and self-awareness in me. I know when to walk away from something that doesn't serve me. I can always rise from the ashes. I know that I deserve good things. I am the main character of my story, and I like to believe that I write my story, my narrative. But like every good story, this wasn't always the case. I was not like Carrie Bradshaw, strutting along in my high-heeled shoes, creating my own narrative, writing personal fiction about nice, spicy things happening in my life. I was her. I was a little girl who was pretty sensitive, delicate, with a very low threshold for rejection, and I loved fairies, magic. I had a lot of feelings. And when I was younger, there's so many incidents that talk about how my feelings were, like how I had too many of them when I was younger. If he would refuse to wear them, I would have an absolute breakdown. There's a story of altruism from when I was 3, where I took my grandmother's golden necklace and dumped it down a drain because I felt bad for it, that it couldn't tell us if it needed to pee. So I had to be the one helping. So from a young age, I like to do things, I like to give things. I was a giver. Similarly, I was my parents' first kid, a guinea pig, and they wanted me to be the best kid. I thought I was great at art. So once we were on vacation when I was a kid, and I figured out that the resort we were staying at was having a drawing competition, and I knew I had to participate. This was my one chance to live all my dreams, and I threw a fit. I told my father, we really should go, I should really do this. And I just made it. I said, listen, if I don't at least try, I'm going to hate myself. So we went. I sat for the competition as my family waited around to eat, and I drew this, something. This is a live action kind of remake by my sister, but kind of this is what I drew. I didn't win, of course, but this became another shiny star in my galaxy. I was a doer. I read all these books like The Secret Garden, the Magic Faraway Tree series. As someone whose mother wrote beautiful letters as birthday gifts, and grandmother wrote poems on napkins at restaurants, it happened organically in the form of stories and poems. So I wrote so much. There's, in fact, this one incident where we were here on Park Street, and I had this intense staring match with a chair for about 10 minutes. And I went home, shut myself in my room, and I wrote this electrifying saga called The Empty Chair. It was about, it's better than it sounds. It was about this man who was delirious and he was talking to his dead wife in his kitchen. I was all of 13. I was a right, but again, like every good story, there is a but. By the time I reached high school, I got pretty sad. I realized that my tendency to give and to feel had gotten me into really draining friendships where I was constantly trying to fit the mold of what the other person needed me to be. It was as if suddenly I didn't know what I deserved anymore. I suddenly felt like I didn't deserve to chase my dream, to go apply to study abroad, wear my hair the way I wanted to, pursue any crushes of mine. And I kind of just, this coupled with my doing side, had me running around in circles trying to do a lot of things for other people in my life. I realized that if I wanted peace in my relationships, in my mind, I needed to fulfill others' needs. So I worked on these gifts, gestures, etc. that would make others happy, and it was easy for me to say that, hey, listen, I don't have any needs. So I began to tiptoe, and the exact things that made me who I am became too much. When I wasn't out people pleasing and I was sad, that was my story of what I said I was. It was called Constellation Sadness Major, because it is just all I could talk about. That was who I was. And but then I had gone through the motions, applied to college, and I did get in. So 2016 came around and I went to college. And excitingly, this was my one American star-spangled chance to reinvent myself, right? To basically change the narrative of who I am. I didn't think of it this way at that point. It just felt more of like a relief that I was leaving. But yeah, I went to a small liberal arts school in the US called Beloit College, and I studied psychology and creative writing, and I want to share a bunch of good things that happened with me, with pictures, or it didn't happen, right? So here goes. First, I found a ride or die. So my best friend, who I actually met as we both almost got accidentally kidnapped together, we got smarter with things, but yeah, that's the story of how we met. I joined a sorority, which was pretty nice. I met a lot of strong women who helped me grow. I made friends who I didn't have to tiptoe around. When my needs were being met in these friendships, I realized that's how it should be. I finally got to be a leader. I got to do the things I wanted to do. So I organized all kinds of parties, even things that I've never heard of. I just wanted to really organize things. I worked a bunch of jobs to figure out what I wanted to do. I fell in love, mostly with food, at least successfully with food. I met a lot of cool people, as I discussed earlier, and looked better than them almost like twice. Hope that helps with the FOMO. I learned from some really awesome professors and stuff that I couldn't have learned just in textbooks. I decided what I wanted to study. I got into graduate school for a master's in mental health counseling. And I think most excitingly, I had a literary breakthrough. So when you study creative writing in college, you have to write a lot of stories. And I had been writing constantly about things that I thought I wanted to talk about, maybe, post-colonialism, India, flavors, food, other people. But I finally started to write about myself. I wrote something that I swear people cried when they read it. And like my professor said, it was as if I was holding my breath, like I was fighting something, right? And I was finally taking up space. And it was a good place to be in. But then 2020 happened. And it suddenly felt like the world was ending, like the sky was falling, right? Nobody expected this. And this happened in my final semester of college. So people were falling sick. Some people were obsessively baking bread. I was stranded in a country where a former TV star was the president. I had no idea I was going to come home. Even my best friend, my ride or die, was not around. My professors were behind a screen, and before I knew it, I was on a rescue flight back to India, and I was back in my childhood bedroom. Thousands of miles away from the dream I'd spent 4 years creating. And I was so afraid that once the hustle and bustle of America left my life, I would become who I used to be, that my constellations of sadness would become bright again and would take over my sky again. But surprisingly, something was different. Calcutta was the same. The people around me mostly were the same. There was still emotional upheaval and uncomfortable things happening around me, but I realized that for some reason and somehow, I was the main character. And upon reflection, I realized that throughout college, experientially, I had somehow stargazed. Now, the thing about stargazing is, if you've ever done it, that if you look at the sky for long enough and close enough, the stars that was painted in the background earlier begin to become more visible. You can see them more clearly. And once these stars become visible, it's possible to make new constellations with them, right? So when you look at these stars as stories again, these were those stories that often went untold, positive stories, preferred stories. So instead of concentrating on the stories about feeling left out or feeling like a pushover in high school, I was telling stories about how I did meet friends who I bonded with over the love for YouTube, our love for YouTube, poetry, etc. How I discovered my love for psychology. And painfully, skillfully, I had created a new dominant narrative for who I was. So the part of me that was an overthinker now was someone who had strong observational skills, investigative skills also sometimes. The part of me that was sensitive, almost too much, was now just very good at interpersonal skills and communication. And I had taken my love for writing that I often hid, and I turned it outward. So when the world was ending, I decided to become a counselor. And it seemed like the perfect job for the giver, the doer, and the writer in me. It felt like everything was falling into place. I was creating this constellation that made so much sense. So every day now, I spend my time with 17-year-olds asking the question, who are you? And I watch them tumble through space as they look for an answer to this question, at least enough to fit the 650-word Common App essay limit. But yeah, and there's so many success stories here. I could share so much with you, but I would have to pick my first student, the creator of Scribbles here. If you look at Scribbles closely, you can see that imperfect dots and doodles come together to make a meaningful whole. Scribbles make sense because of the tiny imperfections, right? And what I'm proud of is that my student did the work to stargaze, and he put his all intellectual image aside and embraced his multidimensional existence. And I have so many stories I could share over conversations while doing stargazing with students, talking about things like grilled cheese sandwiches, raising darkling beetles, Rube Goldberg machines, early morning walks. I watch main characters in training find the shiniest stars in their galaxy every day. And now, towards the end, I of course am a counselor, so I believe in giving techniques where I can. How to be the main character. I learned this in several complicated and often very expensive steps, but I can give it to you here in a 5-step plan. So to be the main character, number 1, you need to learn how to draw lines. Even though I couldn't become the art prodigy I wanted to, that's kind of where my art stopped. But I did learn how to draw lines and boundaries where they are necessary. I realized that you cannot be everywhere and please everyone, even though you might really feel the need to. So you need to consciously realize that relentlessly pursuing the things that don't bring you joy, that don't make you happy, is like turning the pages over of a book repeatedly and wondering why the end hasn't changed. A good way, a tip here to figure out when you need to draw a line is when you find yourself venting about something or someone repeatedly. This is a sign that your brain is trying to take control of a situation. So that is where you need to draw a line. So learn to say no to the things that don't serve you, so you can say yes to the ones that do. Number 2, make the first move. Raise your hand to question as much as you do to answer in classrooms, in public situations, at work. Ask that awesome stranger to watch that strange movie with you. The worst thing that can happen is that they don't know you and they continue to not know you. But the best is that you meet someone awesome and you have an adorable meet cute story to talk about. Negotiate, speak up, apply for things even when you're not sure. Make the first move. Number 3, and this is an important one, hold yourself accountable, because you are the agent of change in your life, right? Look at your galaxy, zoom out, and look at your night sky. Is there something that you are doing that is causing negative stories to appear in your constellations repeatedly? Is there anything you can change about your actions? For example, are you the one always texting first with no response? Are you the one grudgingly doing all the work in group activities? Are you the one choosing to hang out with that group of people or go out to those draining events? Stop, take notice. And this one, I know might sound reductive, but dress the part. I feel like when I dressed like the main character, I felt like it. It also made the other steps astronomically easier to execute. So for me, it is wearing high heels and putting on winged eyeliner. It makes me stand a little taller and see a little clearer. You pick what does that for you. A new hairstyle, a pair of sunglasses. Pick what makes you feel good and pick what makes you feel like the main character. And lastly, write your own story. This is almost as simple as it sounds and as literal. Write your own story. Go get a notebook, open up a blank document and write about yourself in so much detail that puts 13-year-old Yashodra's empty chair passion to shame. Because once you write about yourself, you are creating a living, breathing blueprint of your galaxy. And once you have this in front of you, sit with it and stargaze, right? Take the time to look at your constellations, maybe change your perspective where required, and make a new, dominant, positive story for yourself. And every time you feel like you are tumbling through space with no idea what is happening, go back to step 1 and start again. And I promise you, FOMO will have nothing on you once you take center stage and become the narrator of your own story. Thank you.